Going on to topic 3 now of chapter 5, multiplying polynomials. And recall that here we have a monomial and a monomial, and if we wanted to multiply them, we could rearrange things so that the two numerical coefficients are together, and then the two variables are together, and then we would just multiply this, get a positive 10, and then here we add our exponents. So that's basically the technique, and some of the other objectives are listed here. So, for example 1, we're going to multiply this. Again, you could do it mentally, or if you wanted to rearrange, that's fine. But 24x squared. Now here it's a negative 7 times a 0.2 gives you a negative 1.4. Then you just add your exponents. All right, continuing now, example 3. And you should develop a strategy for this. For instance, what will be the sign of this answer? Well, negative times negative gives you a positive. So now you can forget about the sign. Now, can you do any cross-canceling here? No. So you just multiply your numerators, get 2, denominators 27, and remember there is a 1 there. Add your exponents. Okay? And I think we can do these examples too. So this will be 10y squared, watching our sign. Now 5 times 4 is 20. We need one decimal place. The sign is going to be a negative 2. And then z to the 8th, adding your exponents. Again, you can't cancel. This is going to be a plus. So 9 times 8 is 72. B, add your exponents to the 9th. Okay. So that was multiplying monomials. Now what we're going to do is multiply a binomial by a monomial. And here it's just a matter of keeping in mind you have to follow the protocol. This times this, which will be 10x to the 4th, and then this times this, which gives you plus 30x. Now here you have to be careful of the sign. It's a negative times a positive will give you a negative. A negative times a positive will give you a negative. And a negative times a negative will give you a positive. And it's just a matter of multiplying through. And you'll have practice. Now, they're introducing when we multiply a binomial by a binomial. And the protocol for this would be to take the first term of your first binomial and multiply it by the second binomial. That's what we have here. Then the second term of the first binomial and multiply it by the second binomial. Then you distribute, and you'll notice that here we're getting like terms in the middle. We add those together and get this. Okay? Now, we call this the traditional way of multiplying a binomial by a binomial. And we're going to use this in a later chapter or section, depending how it's set up. So it's important to keep this. And you might say, well, aren't we also going to use the FOIL for this? And the answer is yes. But they want you to be familiar with this method as well. Okay. So in example 5, they will take this first term, multiply it by this, and this second term, and multiply it by this. And they're using this way to illustrate it. Collect like terms, and you end up with this. So setting up the practice, it will be 5x times this. Then it will be the negative 2 times this. Then you'll be distributing. This will be 10x squared plus 15x minus 4x minus 6. And these are your like terms. This will give you a plus 11x and then minus 6. And we usually leave it in descending powers. Now, when you have something like what we see in example 6, here we call it squaring a binomial. So again, there's a special method, but we'll do the traditional one, where in effect we just write it twice. So we would then go 2x times 2x minus x, and then a negative y times 2x minus, well, this is minus y here. Let's write it correctly. There, that's better. So 2x times 2x is 4x squared minus 2xy, and then minus 2xy plus y squared. These are like terms that then become this. Now, there is a shortcut method. Here we could use the FOIL as well, but there's another method. This is called a special product. When we have a binomial that we're squaring, there's a shortcut method in which we square the first term, and that gives us 25x squared, squaring that first term. Then what we do is we multiply these two terms together. That's going to give us a negative 15xy, but then we double it. So it becomes a negative 30xy, and then we square this last term, negative 3y times negative 3y, which gives us a positive 9y squared. Now, if you did this one this way, you would get this. This is a special way of multiplying a binomial that we're squaring. This then gives us what is called a perfect square, trinomial, a perfect square trinomial. And it came about from squaring a binomial, whether you do it this way, whether you use FOIL, or this special way of doing it, you always get a perfect square trinomial. Now, why is that important? Well, because later we're going to take a perfect square trinomial and we can factor it into a binomial square. So all of the things we're doing now, multiplying, later we're going to undo it and factor it. Okay, let's go on to number 7. Now, there's two ways to do number 7. The way they're illustrating here is called the horizontal way. That is, we take this term and multiply it by these 3. This term and multiply it by these 3. But I'm going to suggest, and they're going to illustrate this a little later on, that the best way to do this is to do it vertically. Now, one of the things I've discovered, and hopefully it's going to be useful to you, is to try to keep your like terms in vertical columns. We illustrated this in the previous section. That way, you don't have to go searching for them. You just add up your vertical columns. Well, there is the vertical way to multiply. This is the horizontal way. I'm going to illustrate, and I favor this way, but you can use either way. So 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times this is a negative 8t. 2 times this is 6t squared. Okay, vertical columns now, we're going to match up which one they go into. T times 2 is 2t. T times this is a negative 4t squared. And t times this is 3t cubed. Now, notice what I have here. Columns now that we're going to add that are like terms. So this becomes a plus 4. This becomes a negative 6t. This becomes a positive 2t squared. And this is 3t cubed. Now you had all of this strung out. To me, this is the better way. But you can use this way too. Now for this one, again, it's just a little tedious. I would think of it as this: 3a plus b, the quantity squared, times 3a b plus b. So instead of writing it 3 times, I've written it twice, keeping this in mind. Now I'm going to do this the special way. Square this, and that gives me 9a squared. Multiply these two together. This gives me a 3ab positive. Double it gives me a 6ab, and square this last term. And that's what they have right here. Now I'm going to multiply it by this one. And again, do it vertically. And keeping your like term columns. Again, you can do it this way as well. And you'll be practicing. It just takes a little bit of time. You have to be careful of all the signs. Since these were all plus, that's wonderful. They're all going to be plus. But if there's a negative in there somewhere, then you really have to be careful. Okay. And they're giving us this practice one too. Now they introduced this method, and they do stress this concept of lining them up vertically. Okay? So we've done that. It's just now a matter of practice. Okay, let's see. Did I get it all? And for example 11, again, there's 3 of them. They have them all lined up nicely for you. You have to be careful because there is a negative sign. To be sure that negative is in the right place, and you're very, very careful. Okay, we'll keep this one short. It's just 16 minutes.